Welcome to AMD Vibes.
When you hear the name Cleopatra, what comes to mind? A glamorous queen draped in gold, the lover of Roman generals, a symbol of power and seduction. For centuries, that's the image we've been sold. But the real story of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, is far more complex, dramatic, and brilliant than most people realize. So let us peel back the layers of myth and propaganda to meet the woman who held the fate of an empire in her hands. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra was part of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that had ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. Now here's a fun fact most people get wrong. She wasn't ethnically Egyptian. Her roots were Macedonian Greek. But unlike her predecessors, who largely kept to themselves and spoke only Greek, Cleopatra was different. She was a master linguist, reportedly speaking at least 9 languages, including Egyptian. She embraced Egyptian culture and religion, presenting herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. This was a brilliant political move. It endeared her to her people and solidified her right to rule in a way none of her recent ancestors had. Cleopatra's world was a chessboard of political intrigue, and from a young age, she was a master player. She ascended to the throne at just 18, co-ruling with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. But sharing power wasn't in her nature. A conflict quickly erupted, forcing Cleopatra to flee into exile. It was at this moment, at her most vulnerable, that one of the most powerful men in the world arrived in Egypt, Julius Caesar. Now this is where the legend truly begins. The story goes that Cleopatra, determined to meet Caesar, had herself smuggled past her brother's guards, rolled up inside a carpet. Imagine Caesar's surprise when this rug was unrolled to reveal the determined young queen. Whether it was a carpet or a linen sack, the move was pure genius. It was bold, it was dramatic, and it got her a private audience with a man who could restore her to power. And restore her he did. Caesar was captivated not just by her beauty, but by her intelligence, her wit, and her sheer political audacity. He saw in her a capable and loyal ally. With his military backing, Cleopatra defeated her brother's forces and reclaimed her throne. But their relationship was more than just political. They became lovers, and she bore him a son, Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. She even traveled to Rome and lived in one of Caesar's villas, causing quite a scandal among the Roman elite. For a moment, it seemed like a new power couple was set to rule the Mediterranean. But then, disaster struck. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated on the floor of the Roman Senate. Cleopatra's protector was gone, and her position was once again precarious. She fled back to Egypt with her son, her dreams of a shared Roman-Egyptian empire shattered. Rome descended into civil war, with Caesar's allies and his assassins battling for control. Out of this chaos, a new powerful Roman emerged, Mark Antony. He was one of Caesar's most trusted generals and part of the new triumvirate ruling Rome. He summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus in modern-day Turkey to question her loyalty. He expected a subordinate queen to come begging. He got something else entirely. Cleopatra knew the power of a grand entrance. She didn't just sail to Tarsus. She arrived in a magnificent golden barge with purple sails, rowed by silver oars. She was dressed as the goddess Venus, surrounded by attendants. The entire city turned out to see the spectacle. Antony, who fancied himself a descendant of Hercules, was completely enchanted. He had planned to host a dinner for her, but instead, he ended up being her guest. That night began one of history's most famous love affairs. Their relationship was a whirlwind of passion, politics, and extravagance. They spent a winter together in Alexandria, forming a society known as the Inimitable Livers, dedicated to a life of pleasure and feasting. But it was always more than a romance. For Cleopatra, Antony was the key to securing Egypt's independence and her son's future. For Antony, Egypt's immense wealth was crucial for his military ambitions against his rival, Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. Together, they were a formidable power. Antony declared Caesarion as Caesar's true heir, a direct challenge to Octavian. He also gave Cleopatra and their own 3 children titles to vast territories in the east. This was known as the donations of Alexandria. To the world, it looked like they were building a new Eastern empire to rival Rome. Back in Rome, Octavian saw his chance. He launched a brilliant propaganda campaign, painting Antony as a lovesick fool bewitched by a foreign sorceress. He portrayed Cleopatra not as a capable ruler, but as a decadent and dangerous threat to Roman values. He twisted their political alliance into a scandalous affair, stoking Roman fears of being ruled by an Eastern queen. The propaganda was incredibly effective. Octavian convinced the Roman Senate to declare war not on Antony, a fellow Roman, but on Cleopatra herself. The final showdown came in 31 BC at the naval battle of Actium. It was a disaster for Cleopatra and Antony. Their larger, slower ships were outmaneuvered by Octavian's lighter, more agile fleet. At a critical moment in the battle, Cleopatra's squadron sailed away, with Antony following close behind. Historians debate whether it was a strategic withdrawal or a cowardly retreat, but the result was the same. Their army and navy surrendered, and the path to Egypt was wide open for Octavian. The end was as tragic as a Shakespearean play. In fact, Shakespeare did write one about them. As Octavian's forces closed in on Alexandria, a false report reached Antony that Cleopatra had taken her own life. Devastated, he fell on his sword. He was carried, dying, to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where he died in her arms. Cleopatra was now alone, a captive of Octavian. He planned to parade her through the streets of Rome in chains, a living trophy of his victory. But Cleopatra would never allow herself to be so humiliated. She had one last move to make. According to the famous legend, she had an asp, a venomous snake, smuggled to her in a basket of figs. She allowed it to bite her, choosing to die a queen in Egypt rather than a prisoner in Rome. She was 39 years old. With her death, the Ptolemaic dynasty ended after 3 centuries, and Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. Octavian, now known as Augustus, became the first Roman emperor, and the world was forever changed. So who's the real Cleopatra? She was a brilliant scholar, a cunning politician, a ruthless leader, and a devoted mother who fought desperately to protect her kingdom and her children's legacy. The image of her as a mere seductress was largely the creation of her enemy, Octavian, a piece of political propaganda that has survived for 2,000 years. The truth is, Cleopatra was one of the most formidable figures of the ancient world. A woman who dared to challenge the might of Rome and almost succeeded. Her story isn't just a romance, it's a timeless epic of power, ambition, and a queen who refused to bow. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and let me know in the comments which historical figure you'd like to see us cover next. See you in the next video.